Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. Today we're going to be talking about common self-publishing mistakes. Because self-publishing means that so many of the decisions are in your hands as an author, which can be a great thing for those who want complete control over their book and how it's published and marketed. It also means that there are a lot of common mistakes that indie authors tend to make. It's natural with self-publishing, with it being a fairly complicated process with a lot of little things that you need to learn. You're gonna get better at it with each book you publish. You're gonna become more comfortable by the time you're publishing your second book, your third book. You're gonna figure out a publishing process that really works for you. But I hope that the points in this video can help you bypass some of these common mistakes. The first one is not hiring an editor. A lot of indie authors skimp on the editing process because, editing can be expensive, and they think that they just don't need it. Maybe the book was seen by a few critique partners and beta readers, and so they think it's been thoroughly edited enough. It doesn't need to see the eyes of a professional. It is true that editing can be an investment. It's probably going to be your largest cost in terms of publishing, but that's what self-publishing is. It means that you do have to fund the book's production yourself, and in exchange you get complete control over everything. If you want your book to be successful commercially, it's really important and necessary that you hire an editor, because you have to compete with traditionally published books. After all, the readers are the same. When they pick up a book, they're not thinking, well, I guess I'm gonna judge this a little more lightly because it's self-published. No, they're used to reading traditionally published books, which have all been professionally edited. And so in order to compete with the standards set by the market, then your book also needs to go through a professional editor, probably several. There are several different types of editors. Your book should probably be seen by a developmental editor, a copy editor, and a proofreader. If your book doesn't go through the necessary editing, it's going to be hard to be successful because you won't get good reviews with a book that wasn't professionally edited, and so it's going to be hard to get sales. Next up is in a similar vein, and it's DIYing the cover design. Cover design is a skill. I bet we can all think of books that we saw and we picked up off the shelf just because of the cover, and you want your book to be able to compete with that professional level of cover design. Your cover is one of your most important marketing tools, and so you probably want to leave that in the hands of a professional because it's pretty hard to get good sales without a strong cover. The next common mistake is publishing a really long book just because you can. Now, one great thing about self-publishing is the freedom. You can publish whatever you want. No one is stopping you. But some indie authors use this opportunity to publish books that would be way too long for the traditional market. Some authors see the word counts used in traditional publishing as restrictive, and so they self-publish really, really long books that just wouldn't find a place in the traditional market. And although there are some really long books that work, for the most part, those word counts that we see in traditional publishing exist for a reason, and most books are strongest when they fit within them, self-published or traditionally published. If you have a really, really long book, your book is 200, 300,000 words, it helps to be really honest with yourself about whether the book needs all this content, or maybe it's several books masquerading as one and you'd be best splitting it into a couple books. Just because you have the freedom to publish a really long book as an indie author doesn't necessarily mean that you should. The next mistake would be not setting up your book's metadata. So your book's metadata is your description, the categories, the keywords. This information is really crucial because it's how readers will find your book in an online store via search results. If you don't take the time to research metadata and learn how to set up the metadata of your book properly, it's going to be really hard for readers to discover your book on an online store and for that online store to promote your book. We've got a couple videos on these topics. We have one on writing your book's description. We have another one on categories and keywords, so I'll leave that below. It's really worth learning, and if you've published a book and you haven't set up the metadata properly and you're not getting a lot of sales, I would start tinkering with that because it might really improve your book's performance. The next would be not making use of the pre-order period. The time before you publish your book leading up to your launch date is a really important marketing time for building awareness about your book, for building your author platform, and for getting pre-orders. If you're a month or a week away from your book's launch and you haven't started marketing, it's probably a little too late. Marketing during the pre-sale period will make sure your book has a strong launch, you get strong sales in that first week, maybe you can rank on online stores. It's really, really important for your book's success long term. And it's a big oversight and a common mistake to not do enough marketing in that pre-sale period. I'll leave a video below on book launches and all of the different things that you can consider in the months leading up to your book's launch. Now, on the flip side, another really common mistake is not marketing after the launch. Some indie authors, they do lots of marketing up to the launch, and then after the launch they're like, well, I can sit back now because I've successfully launched my book. Marketing never really ends. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing effort. You need to be continually marketing your book in order to keep getting sales, to keep building your author platform for the next book. So just as it's really important to do lots of marketing leading up to your launch, you want to keep up that momentum and keep marketing after the launch. You know, if you have a successful book launch, make the most of that. Channel that success into an ongoing marketing effort rather than stopping now. The next common mistake is overpricing your book. This is another thing where, because indie authors have the freedom to do whatever they want, sometimes they take advantage of that freedom. You know, they write books, they publish books that are a little too long, or maybe they price their books a little too high. You know, it can be tempting for some indie authors. They start calculating like how much higher their royalties will be based on the higher price, but at this point you might be pricing yourself out of the market. If you're pricing your book, say, at the price point of a traditionally published hardcover, you're probably overpricing yourself. Research other indie books in your category, see how they're priced, and try to keep yourself in that range. And the final common mistake is writing to trends rather than building a consistent author brand. Now, one thing that a lot of traditionally published authors will hear is, don't try to write to trends, because by the time you write the book and publish the book, the trend will be over. And that is often true in traditional publishing because the market moves pretty slow. It can take several years between acquisition and a book hitting the shelves. As an indie author, you can compress that publishing timeline and publish much quicker. So some indie authors are tempted by that and they want to cash in on trends. And it is true that doing market research is great, and we can add here as kind of a bonus one, not doing enough market research is definitely another common mistake. But there is a big difference between knowing your market, knowing what sells well in your genre, and knowing how to market in a way that will reach the target readers in your genre, and writing to chase trends. If you just write to chase trends, what'll happen is you'll never build a consistent author brand. So do market research, understand the trends in your genre, but use that knowledge to market your book appropriately so you can reach your target audience, rather than writing books just to cash in on whatever is popular now. It's better to write and market to more stable long-term trends in your genre, rather than more volatile short-term trends that can lead to a confusing author brand and readers not necessarily wanting to come back for the next book. So those are some common self-publishing mistakes. If you are a self-published author, I would love to hear what you learned from your first book or your early books. What do you wish you'd done differently? It's pretty much impossible to go through a process as complicated as self-publishing a book without learning something and wishing you'd done something differently. That's natural. You know, the second book will be easier than the first, the third book will be easier than the second. You'll get better and better at it the more books you've published. But if you've gone through the publishing process and you have any wisdom you want to share, maybe to spare a future indie author, I would love to hear your experiences in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time.